Hey, so it's been a little while, a couple weeks now since I pushed my last video. I'm also in a different spot, you might notice. So my camera, for whatever reason, the normal DSLR that I use, is having some issues. So we're trying something different today. Anyway, there are a couple thoughts that were on my mind recently, and over the past few weeks have really been a theme here. Um, it, at least for me personally, and I think this is something that is relevant to a lot of people that are trying to get more involved, and push their voice out more through formats online, any sort of platform, whether that's YouTube like this, or Twitch, or Twitter. Their Clubhouse, I think, is a different sort of platform that a lot of people haven't necessarily heard of yet. It is good for like live conversation and stuff. And there's so many different options. You can start a blog, you can make a podcast. It's kind of overwhelming. And if you're someone that has the tendency or the desire to move into that space, and start actually just getting your thoughts or your work or creations or whatever out onto the internet, it is overwhelming. For so many reasons. If you're like me, the biggest one is the whole reason that I tend to struggle with most of the time, which is stopping myself from actually doing the thing, because I don't think it's good enough. It's not polished enough. It's just not ready. I don't have the expertise or the knowledge necessary yet to talk about a particular thing. All of those sorts of like self-doubt and thoughts end up clouding my ability over the years to actually do something and get it out there. And so it's always a continuous challenge. It's like always trying to overcome this. And something that I recently embarked on was starting a blog. I've literally got one post in there right now. And then I also did like a post to start opening up some questions and getting people to push back ideas and things if they happen to see that. But it was tricky. It was tricky from the start, as someone that struggles with imposter syndrome all the time, and is really trying to get over that sort of self-doubt, at least in this part of my life. It's like facing head on right into the biggest point of fear, which is, I put this out there. I put these thoughts out there. I put my writing out there. And it's not even just in video. Video is like almost in a way a little bit, at least for me, a little bit less committal, in that it's fleeting. You watch it and maybe there's a moment that in my brain, someone is like, that's a weird thing to say. And they can rewind back to that, I guess. That's like the worst that can happen. But in writing, there's something that feels very permanent about that, more permanent than doing like a live stream. So it's written in stone in a way, so to speak. So that is something that I've been very hesitant on for a long time. I know there's a lot of people that struggle with this as well. So this is why I'm trying to kind of talk through this here, so that at least if anybody else finds this useful at some point, I will have felt like this was worthwhile. So started this blog. I got one post in, and the first problem that I run into is I get that first post. I do a pretty good job of getting it structured and everything, looking up at like format that other people have done. But the problem there is then that I'm doing something that is not necessarily inspired by the way that I think. It's by the way that other sort of Substackers or bloggers or whatever would structure an article and content that they wrote. And as soon as I actually push that one out, and then start to set upon the task of writing another one and continuing, I already feel like I am stuck in this box. And for someone with with that struggles sort of with externally enforced structures at times that are arbitrary. There's not like a good reason for it in what I'm doing. It immediately hampers the progress. So I spent the last week or two basically struggling to figure out how to write the next one. The first one was actually, I mean, it was hard. It took many years to just start doing that. But then writing the second one has felt like an even trickier endeavor because of this sort of mental block. So that is kind of where Head's been at over the past couple weeks. If you've been checking in on any of these videos, that is just a little bit of context in the life after leaving work and all of that, to try to sort of formulate something that is actually sustainable and that I enjoy doing and find fulfilling and feel like I can share something of myself with others, with you all that is actually meaningful. Because I feel like that is the most important possible thing that anyone can do with their time, is to find like what is most meaningful there for them, and then figure out how to share more of that with the world. So that's actually it's a bit of a segue into the title of this video, which I was actually really inspired by a video that Ali Abdul made earlier. Might have been earlier this year during the pandemic, not sure, but Ali Abdul has some really good content. If you haven't ever seen his stuff before, definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested in any way in improving upon the way that you sort of approach problems in life, and approach organizing yourself, and approach your passions and work, and whatever the hell that is. So he does a pretty good job of breaking some of these things down. He's also he went through med school, and he's a doctor, so he's got some good perspectives there. But this particular topic that just happened to come up in one of these videos, he was actually talking about somebody else, another content creator, David Perrell. So in a podcast of his, David brought up this idea of a serendipity vehicle. And I really like this. The idea that there is a medium that you can find or create that really gives you that sense of serendipity. And to kind of break that down a little bit further, basically just the idea that you have a realization or an aha moment. And oftentimes, I think for a lot of people, that is in having conversations with others. Or maybe it is the sort of time and space from those conversations, if you're more of an introvert at times, like I tend to be. But at least personal perspective, I flip back and forth. Sometimes that serendipity and the aha moment happens when I am in my own space, completely sort of isolated from distractions and things. It's just a matter of managing the ADHD from all external distractions, so that I can have the space to actually hit upon the solution or idea or whatever the hell it was that I was trying to come up with, or just really needed and maybe didn't even know it. The other time that it tends to happen a lot is around other people, having conversations that I wouldn't have been having otherwise. So we start to talk through something, and they say something that creates a spark in my brain. And that sort of moment, that realization, that is one of the most awesome and inspiring things that I can think of. It's one of the best ways that I've found, at least, to inspire myself into action, to go and do something. To maybe I've had an idea for a while, and I've been wanting to create that, even if it's, let's say this is literally I'm creating a D&D campaign. I'm running a game with friends, and I want to create a map or a new session for them for the next week when we all meet up again. But I'm kind of stuck on what to do. And so I have a conversation with somebody, and they mention an idea that they had, and that serendipity happens. And suddenly I'm like, oh my gosh, that totally gels with something that I was kind of thinking of, but wasn't really sure on. So then you put those different things together, and suddenly you've got something completely new, and maybe you've gotten past that creative block that you had. So this is something I've talked about before in a couple previous videos, but just ways of breaking past creative blocks. And one of the ways that works really well for me is to put myself either in a very quiet and sort of serene space where I can have the space to think, or being around other people, having those conversations, and having those serendipitous moments, realizations to inspire me. And that's what gives that energy. And so a serendipity vehicle, as David Perrell was talking about, that's what that seems like. If you can find a way to create the space or the interactions, the social space to inspire yourself, that is your sort of serendipity vehicle. That is the conduit through which you find your inspiration, you gain your energy, and then can pour that into whatever the hell you want. Whatever it is that you are inspired to do or create or run off and adventure, whatever the hell it is. So serendipity vehicle. I really like that concept. The other thing that I got from this video, which I'll actually link in the doobly-doo to this later, because I feel like this was just a really good inspiration this morning, and it got me started on a good foot. When I was, for the past couple weeks, I've been kind of just struggling a bit on this. But with having started this blog and doing more of these video series in general this year, and all of in so many different ways, trying to cultivate a voice, cultivate my own sort of more true to what my interests are and passions are, that voice. And for you, it'd be the same thing. It's this idea that the things that you are most deeply interested in, and that stir you, that inspire you, you find ways to do more of that, to focus more of your energy and time on those things. So one of the things he was talking about in this video was just in putting yourself out there, actually sharing this content online, sharing your voice online, and not actually being afraid to put those things out there and worry about them being perfect and polished at any point in time. So I'm taking this and using it in the context of the blog to try and destructure. The first thing that I did with it was put a bunch of structure on it. So that kind of needs to come away. And it's not necessarily going to, it's not going to tell me exactly how I need to do it. It's just that I need to go through the motions over time. And that structure, those ideas, and the shape of it will emerge over time. I've been driving myself crazy, and I feel like this is often the advice that I would get from others, is to know exactly what your business or your idea or the project or whatever the hell it is you're doing. Know exactly what it looks like. Have a lean canvas laid out for every single element there and how you're going to make money, what you're going to do. And it's just not realistic often in life, especially if you're trying to do something that is more close to home. It's not like you're building this product for a particular audience over there. When you're trying to cultivate your own voice, you don't start out knowing who your audience is. I mean, maybe you do, but if that's the case, you're probably extremely fortunate to have such a clear idea of who cares about the things that you care about. So going on any endeavor, like creating a blog or doing videos online or live streams or podcasts, whatever, it's all this process of finding your audience, but you don't always know who that audience is at the start. So what I'm telling myself here, and what I'm telling you, if you're trying to do something similar to this, or if you're trying to find your voice online, is to drop that need to know exactly who that audience is, if it is stopping you from actually moving forward and creating more of the thing, more of whatever it is you love. I'm going to go back and listen to this later. So I think this is going to be helpful for me. I think it'll be helpful for some other people, but this is basically the biggest block that I will run into. I think a lot of people run into is just let yourself do the thing. Also, this kind of ties into this bigger kind of idea that I love to think of the internet as a giant brain, a hive mind of sorts. And if you think of every single individual person that is on the internet, on various social media or email even, um, each of us are kind of like a little neuron, a node in that giant network. And the way that we communicate to one another is via all of these different platforms, all of these different mediums, videos, whatever, posting on Twitter. So we're basically the speed at which this giant humanity-sized brain is able to think is only limited by how efficiently we communicate to others across the internet. I don't even know what it looks like to study a mind of that scale. And it's hard to find in some of the research that I've done on this, it's hard to find even what other people call that kind of sort of civilization scale brain. That's probably going to be a field that continues to develop over time. The internet is very young, so it's never happened before. So how would we even know? But one of the things that feels extremely fulfilling about putting a voice out there, about projecting your passions and the things that you care about out there, to me, is that you are literally pushing your signal out into what would otherwise continue to be only the voices of a few people and a lot of noise and things there. And so you're contributing out that voice, you're pushing yourself to actually project the things that you love out into this giant mind, this amalgam of thoughts and ideas. And you're basically contributing to the sort of consciousness of the internet. That sounds a little bit woo-woo, but I don't know how else you would describe that. I mean, if we as a whole are this giant sort of network with all kinds of different thoughts and activities going on all the time, and it's all being zipped back and forth between different people, and somebody puts something out and then a million people see it, that is an explosion of activity in one part of the network. And that is a thought that just happened and got disseminated out to a bunch of other people. And then you share the things that inspires you on, and it may do the same thing. And so over time, you're just building a sort of bigger kind of splash within this network, and you're literally just contributing to the progression and thinking brain of humanity. And that is a really cool thing to me. And it encompasses all of the best and worst things that you can find in any corner of the web. But it's not about it, to me at least, it's not about it being a net. It's not about it being a good or bad thing. It is just, if we can be thinking more, if we can be sharing thoughts more efficiently, and if we can all be helping to kind of make one another smarter and help one another through whatever problem it is that you're running into at that point in life, that is like one of the most fundamentally amazing pursuits and fulfilling sort of things that I can think of. This is my personal feel, but if it's something that inspires you too, I hope that is helpful and gives you a little bit of energy to go out and do the things that you love as well. So I'm going to go do that too. I'm going to go do some writing, but I'm going to try not to hobble myself by thinking about how it's not good enough for all these various reasons. And hope this was inspiring to somebody. Thanks.